Well, does anybody know the history on these AGCO ALLIS tractors? Well, I know a little bit. But a lot of people don't even really know much about them or think much of them because they were only made or marketed for a little bit. But in my area, there's a few of them. What you have here is a AGCO ALLIS 4660 with an Allied 394 loader. It's an AGCO ALLIS symbol or emblem. So these tractors were sold, I think, primarily in the mid 90s and early 2000s. There's not a lot on them. I mean, you can find information on the internet on them. But you know, I've been out to auctions in different places and see them, and a lot of times they don't bring a lot of money. A lot of people say, well, I don't know if you can get parts for them. Some people say, well, they may not have been real reliable. That hasn't been the case with this one. I've owned this a little over 2 years. This thing's a 1997 model, and I bought it off the original owner. And the only thing I've had to do to it is a couple rear tires, replace one front tire, had to, you know, do a few small things. But I don't use it for a whole lot. I use it to rake some hay, use it for the scraper blade for the road in the winter. It is an air-cooled diesel. It looks almost identical to a Deutz diesel. Matter of fact, I think it's made by the same company, or it is made by Deutz. This tractor was bought new at this place called Kiefer Service Center, which is no longer in business, but they used to sell a lot of tractors around here in my area. They were a good company to deal with. But everybody in my area, a lot of people bought a lot of Deutz and Ford stuff off of them. They've had real good service with those folks, but I think they went out of business about 20 years ago. But like I said, everybody had great service and really liked that dealer. Yeah, this tractor could use a seat, but you know, for a cheaper four-wheel drive, it was the best deal I could find at the time. I wish I had a cab on it, full enclosure cab, but it works for what it is. This tractor isn't that bad to start in the wintertime, being air-cooled and all. I did put some remote battery jumpers up on the hood because it is a pain in the butt to get to the battery on this model. But like I say, it's short, it leaks a little bit of fluid. It's not the prettiest thing, but for scraping a road in the winter, or if you got a bad snowstorm, you gotta get over and feed your animals, it's not too bad. It does. But this one's, again, an AGCO ALLIS 4660. And, you know, we're going to dive in here and talk a little bit about the history of the AGCO ALLIS tractors and the partnership, I guess, they had with Deutz. And I believe it was a company in Italy that made these, and Japan. I think there was some kind of partnership there. So we'll dive into it and also look at some different part sources that are available for these models. Again, they're not bad tractors. I see them all the time. I see people on the internet saying, oh, don't buy an AGCO ALLIS, you can't get parts, or you know, this or that. I have not run into an issue with getting parts for these. You just got to know where to go and to get them. Again, they're not the most ergonomical tractor, definitely by modern standards today, but for a cheap four-wheel drive, not too bad. All right, so a little bit of history. AGCO ALLIS tractors were produced by a company, or a lot of the models, like my 4660, not all of them, but a lot of them were made in Italy by a company called SAME. And my model, the 4660, was built between 1991 and 1997. I have a 1997 model, and parts has not been an issue for me. I have been able to get a lot of parts from a place called Ward's in North Carolina. And also, there's a AGCO dealer about 2 hours from here called Mayer Farm Equipment out of Ohio. So I haven't had much trouble finding parts. I did have to get one coupler for the 4-wheel drive shaft on that tractor, but I was able to source it through Ward's in North Carolina. There was some kind of partnership later on with Deutz and AGCO. I'm not 100% sure how it worked, but you know, that diesel engine that's in my tractor was what is called a SLH diesel, which I think was built in Italy. And I think they had some kind of partnership between Deutz and Lamborghini. I'm not 100% for sure, but I believe that's a little bit of the history there. AGCO branded tractors are all types of branded tractors. There's today, AGCO dealers carry Massey Ferguson. They carry some of the Gleaner stuff as far as combines, and I think they got some kind of partnership with Caterpillar today. But again, I have not had any issues finding parts for my AGCO ALLIS tractor. Again, my model was one that was built in Italy by SAME. And my tractor actually is almost an identical model to what they referred to as the SAME 60 or the Solar 60 tractor that was produced by that company. So a little bit more history. AGCO dealers and AGCO, the company acquired White tractors sometime in the 1980s, I believe. And in 1990, they had bought out Deutz ALLIS. Sometime, I guess in the 70s, late 70s, like 1979, Deutz and bought the assets of ALLIS-Chalmers. And they sold stuff throughout the 80s under the umbrella and the name Deutz ALLIS. And then I believe in 1990, AGCO Corporation had acquired the assets of Deutz ALLIS, North America or whatever. And that's how that joint partnership took place. I believe Deutz is now called Deutz Fahr or something like that. It's another name, but the assets of Deutz ALLIS was acquired by AGCO. And AGCO started selling the tractors under the name AGCO ALLIS throughout the 90s. And I believe up into the early 2000s. So I don't want to give them misinformation, but that's a little bit of the history. Yes, you can go to an AGCO dealer today and get parts for any of the AGCO ALLIS tractors, the Gleaner combines, White tractors. I believe there's some other brands under that umbrella also that you can still get parts for AGCO through. Maybe even Oliver. I'm not 100% for sure. I know the AGCO dealers I go to get parts for this AGCO ALLIS. People can get parts for ALLIS-Chalmers, White, Gleaner, Massey Ferguson, and so on and so forth. Again, I've been very lucky with mine to be able to get most of my parts, you know, through either Ward's in North Carolina or, you know, my local AGCO dealer. And of course, the internet's got parts too. You know, you can source it. I know that, like I said, my tractor is the same one as the SAME Solar 60, which I believe was sold like in Japan or India or somewhere, or overseas, maybe Europe. But there is some parts available. You know, again, I've seen a lot of these AGCO tractors go up for sale, and you know, people don't buy them. You hear them say, oh, there's no parts, there's this or that. I haven't had much issue with mine. Again, I don't use it a ton. I do have a few clips in here of me using it, but other than that, I mean, it's been a pretty stable tractor. It holds a hillside pretty well. I do have the rear tires loaded. The gentleman I bought it from used it for years, from 1997 all the way up to 2022. used it in the wintertime for feeding round bales. I believe he even raked hay with it and baled with it. And it done a good job for him. He just had moved on, I guess, to a bigger cab tractor, and it was time to move on past it. I was able to get this tractor for a very good deal. It popped up on Facebook Marketplace one night for a very reasonable price, and I was able to, actually was in that area where he was at the next morning, and I was able to go there and try it out and make the deal. Again, I've had it a little over 2 years. It's been a very reliable tractor for me. Now, again, if it had a cab, I'd be more even into it, but I may end up looking at getting building a cab, a soft cab or something for it here in the future. That tractor I had, my 4660, lived its life on, like I said, on a river bottom off the Ohio River feeding cattle. And sure, it lived a little bit of a rough life, but it still has some life left in it. I still use it here at my place. Like I said, it's been very reliable for me, and it's a very good tractor to run on the hillside, side to side. I do got it widened out, the rear tires, and do have the tires loaded.